I call to order the City of Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals for October the 22nd, 2020. Roll call, please.
Clapper,
Here.
Burrell,
Here.
Sanders. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sandberg. Just ignore me. I haven't slept. Sandberg.
Here, but unfortunately not for long.
Right, perfect. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
And Husky.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you for the link. Sorry, I couldn't find
No,
it.
that was, went out a little bit differently this month, I think. So sorry about that. And I don't believe, we weren't sure if Joe was going to be, Joe Throckmorton was going to be on, so he may be popping on, but we'll go ahead without him.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
So the meeting minutes from our June meeting, we will review those and vote on them to approve them next month. I want to extend a warm welcome to Susan Sandberg, even though this is just her kind of visiting hearing, and you will be leaving us at about 6 o'clock this evening. So do we have any other reports, resolutions, and communications?
Sorry. We do not. Yes, only that we have a new member for the rest of the year, Susan Sandberg. We're so grateful for her to join us and round us out as 5. And that's about it. And if you are watching this on Cats, there has been some issues with getting to Facebook from Zoom today. So we're not up on Facebook, but this is recorded and will be on Cats as well.
Okay, thank you. And before we get started, if folks haven't been on a hearing yet through the City of Bloomington, when it comes time to speak, if you could please just raise your hand and that function at the bottom under participants so that we know that you want to speak when it's time for public comment. So the petitions we will hear tonight, we have 3. The first one is V-18-20 Duncan Campbell. The second is V-20-20 New Urban Station LLC, Stageyard Apartments. And the third is V-21-20 Tim Hansen for Hillside Manor Holdings LLC. We are ready for the first petition, please. Staff report.
All right, give me 1 second, sorry. All right. This petition is for the property located at 2300 West Tap Road. The roughly 20-acre property is located again at 2300 West Tap Road. The property was recently rezoned to residential estate or RE. The surrounding properties to the north and west are zoned in PUDs and are currently vacant. The property to the east is home to Clear Creek Trail, and the property to the south is owned by the petitioner and is outside of the city's jurisdictional bounds. The property was developed or has been developed with a historic single-family dwelling, which was constructed in the 1830s, a barn built in the 1850s, a shed, and a detached garage. The petitioner is requesting variances from 2 different standards. The first request is for a variance from rear building setback standards to allow for the construction of an addition. The second request is for a variance from maximum footprint cumulative total for accessory structures in the RE district. Here is a quick overview of the site plan. I'll zoom in a little bit as I move along. The UDO requires primary structures in the RE district to be set back from rear property lines 60 feet. As you can see here in the drawing, the proposed setback is for the 748 square foot addition to the existing structure is 25 feet from the rear property line. So that's a 35-foot encroachment. The proposed addition will allow an increase in living space and allow access to utilities to be on the utility uses to be on the first floor. The addition will feature similar architectural design elements to the rest of the historic structure, keeping it in line with the historic structure. For the maximum footprint cumulative total variance, the RE district has no limit on the number of accessory structures, but it does have a cumulative total maximum footprint. The maximum footprint for accessory structures in the RE district is based on the square footage of the primary structure. The cumulative footprint of accessory structures cannot exceed 50% of the square footage of that primary structure. The northwest section of the property, there's a historic 1850s barn and a shed. The barn is about 2,200 square feet, and the shed is about 200 square feet. On the southwest section of the property, there's a 900 square foot detached garage. So there is a total of 3,336 square feet of cumulative accessory structures on the property. So to go over the variance criteria, there's no injury found in the requested variance for rear building setbacks. The proposed addition will encroach 35 feet into the RE district's required 60-foot rear building setback and will meet all other required setbacks. The petitioner owns the adjacent property to the south, which forms the property lines or the property's rear property line. Again, this property is also outside of the city's jurisdictional boundaries. No injury is found with the requested variance from minimum footprint or maximum footprint cumulative total of an accessory structure on the property. The historic barn was built on the property again in 1855. The detached garage and shed have both been on the property since before the property was annexed by the city, all without incident. No adverse impacts to the use and value of the surrounding properties are found with the resulted of the requested variance for from the rear building setback in the RE district. The addition to the single family dwelling is proposed to be 25 feet from the rear property line. 25 feet is a common rear building setback for other single family dwellings throughout the city. No adverse impact to the use and value of the surrounding properties are found as a result in the requested variance from the maximum footprint of accessory structures on the property. The existing structures are all located 80 feet or more away from side and rear property lines, reducing the likelihood of causing adverse impacts to surrounding properties. Practical difficulty is found in the required rear building setback. Peculiar condition is found in the fact that majority of the property, including surrounding the existing structure, is located within a flood zone. A suitable location for a one-story addition would be difficult to find on the property without encroaching into the rear setback. Peculiar condition is also found in the fact that the property has, until September this year, been zoned for employment uses only and would not have been allowed any expansion for the primary structure. The petitioner's request to rezone the property was intended to bring the existing use into compliance with the UDO and allow for this addition. If both petitioners' properties were within the city's boundaries, the need for a variance from rear building setback may not have been required because a lot line shift could have been performed, avoiding the need for an encroachment. So with that, the department recommends, oh, that number's wrong. The department recommends the adoption of the proposed findings and the acceptance of the 1820, and then there's some conditions. Hang on, sorry. The conditions are as follows. The petitioner must obtain a building permit prior to construction. The variance from the rear building setback requirements applies to the addition as proposed only. Only any subsequent quote encroachment would require a variance. And then this variance applies to accessory structures as they currently exist. Only any subsequent developments that do not meet UDO requirements would require an additional variance. I can answer any questions.
Did the last slide pertain to this hearing?
No, it didn't. Yeah, it was just got messed up in the same.
Okay, okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you. Petitioner's representative, are you here? I saw you somewhere.
Duncan, I think you can unmute yourself. Oh, there you go.
Here I am,
Okay, could you please state your name?
Duncan Campbell.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes to present your petition.
Okay, I really don't think that's going to be necessary. I filled out the application and answered all the questions that you wanted, and regarding hardship and so on. I think the issue here is just is catching up more than anything else. This house has been here since 1830 and was originally on contiguous almost 2,000 acres. And through subsequent subdivisions and sales, we bought the 19.7 or something acres on the frontage, the part that's been annexed by the city in 2002 or 4 or something like that. I've always owned the lot behind, or at least from about a year or two from the time we bought the first lot. Of course, it wasn't annexed because it doesn't have any tax value. So I'm sitting on really 50 acres of land that we've had for 35 years. And the subdivision of that land is, if anything, accidental. And the fact that they're not both under one jurisdiction is no fault of ours, let's put it that way, to be kind. And I think I described in the paperwork that putting an addition on the house is primarily so we can age in place. We needed a downstairs bathroom. We're trying to create a space all on the first floor for greater accessibility as we age. The house is, because it's of its age and its type, it was obviously built without any bathroom originally. And so the adoption of a nursery room upstairs or a trunk room, if you know your history, is that's what's become the bathroom, and it's not going to be convenient as we age, increase in our age. So we look to an addition that would satisfy our ability to stay here. And the only place you can really put an addition on this house without significantly disrupting the historic character of the house is on the south facade, which is the south end of the federal building, which doesn't have any windows but does have a single door to the exterior, which would allow us to enter the addition from the back of the kitchen, basically. Every other facade either has an extensive porch on it or lots of fenestration that would be very disrupted. The north facade is also windowless but it's also doorless. So in order to go out to the north, I would have had to take out a historic fireplace wall to create a door, which obviously I'm not about to do. So really the place we put it is the only place to put it. And with the place we want to put it is the only place to put it. And because I own the land immediately to the south, my crime is encroaching on myself, which, I don't care. I don't mind. Let's put it that way. I can't do that. I can't make it any different from that. So in that sense, there isn't really, to not award the variance is to tell me I can't stay here, which is nuts. And I don't think that's what you want to do. Most of you know that I'm a historic preservationist by profession. And so I've very carefully designed this addition to meet compatibility requirements and not make the existing historic structure compromised in any way. And we've spent quite a bit of time in the design and planning for the thing. The other thing that it does, I might add, is that it encloses an outdoor cellar entrance. And so we prefer not to have to go out in the snow to do our laundry in the cellar. So we've enclosed that we want to enclose that into the addition to make it more convenient for us. So that's the rationale for the addition and its location. The other variance obviously addresses buildings that have been here before the law was here. So I can't do it. I'm not going to tear down a barn and a garage to meet square footage requirements, clearly. So it seems obvious that that really should be allowed. I mean, all these buildings predate the UDO or any version of planning that Bloomington has ever had, actually. So even the garage was built in 1943. So I can't really do anything about the fact that I have too much square footage. It's just, it's a crime of no intent, if you will. So that's really the reason that we're here. And we have been through Plan Commission to get the rezone. We've been through Land Use Committee for City Council to get the rezone. We've been through City Council to get the rezone, all of which have been approved unanimously. So the anticipation from the first application for permit was that those things, that if those things went through and were approved, that the necessary variances, which we recognized from the outset, would also be approved. So I put myself at your mercy. And I'm happy to answer questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. We are to the board for questions. I'm going to start. I have a question of staff. I'm not exactly clear why the second variance is necessary. Is it linked to the cumulative issue because it was just a pre-existing non-conforming situation?
Yeah, so the RE district has a limit based on the primary structure, the limit to maximum square footage. It already exceeded that. And so when it was previously zoned as EM, it didn't have that problem because it would have just been legal non-conforming. The switch in zoning actually makes it so that the accessory structures need to be legitimized moving forwards to make it match with the standards, the variance will allow it to continue essentially.
Okay, so the addition is triggering the second variance. It is, indirectly.
No.
Indirectly, well, yes, in that they couldn't add on to the primary structure in the former zoning district that they were in. It was a non-conforming use that they can't expand. So they needed to be rezoned to a district that would allow it. And then therefore, once that became a district that it would allow, it had new rules applied to accessory structures. Therefore, they needed to catch up to the district.
So if I can interject, Jackie Scanlon, Development Services Manager. So the rezone is actually the final trigger for both variances because both of the development standards are in this zone, which we recommended and council agreed was an appropriate district for this site and use. But then there are these two development standards that go along with RE that they could not meet. So you're right. If they were doing this addition and they were already zoned RE and they needed to come to you for a rear yard setback variance, we wouldn't be talking about the accessory structures at all.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, seeing none, we're to any member of the public who would like to speak to this petition. Please raise your hand in the participants section. I'm not seeing anyone, Jackie. Okay, then we are back to the petitioner's representative. If you have any final comments, I'm sure you have plenty of time remaining.
No, I don't think I do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we are back to the board for action.
I move that we adopt the proposed findings and recommend and approve V-18-20 with the 3 conditions listed.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I think Susan said.
Sandberg seconded that one.
Amber, second. Okay, so we are ready for a vote.
Great. Burrell,
Yes.
Husky,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Clapper.
Yes, the petition is approved. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here. Okay. Our next petition is V-20-20 New Urban Station LLC Stageyard Apartments. Staff report, please.
Okay, is everything, you guys see my screen all right? Oh, thank you so much. So this is a request for the Stageyard Apartments. They're requesting a variance to allow ground floor dwelling units to not be located 20 feet behind the building facade. So this is for the building that was just recently constructed. They just finished construction this year and received occupancy from us, and they moved in students. This is on the east side of Walnut Street, just north of Smith, just south of 3rd, just north of the Prospect School. This used to locate or contain a multi-tenant center that had rhinos in there and various other one-story commercial buildings. It was demolished. Site plan approval was given 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. Grading permit was issued a year ago. Building permit was issued a year ago. They constructed the building. The building contained ground floor parking and retail space with apartments above. The previous UDO required that ground floor non-residential uses be installed, have to contain at least 50% of that ground floor. The site plan showed that. The building was constructed to all of those standards, so everything was built and constructed according to all of the approvals. So since then, the petitioners have had significant difficulty for a variety of reasons finding tenants for those commercial spaces. And so they would like to convert that ground floor space into residential units. So the current UDO requires that ground floor residential uses within the downtown, within this overlay district, be located 20 feet behind the front building facade. So the petitioners are requesting a variance in order to allow for, as I said, all of the ground floor to be converted into residential units. They've submitted a floor plan with a packet that would show how that would meet. Within the downtown, we no longer regulate the number of units or bedrooms, so this is not a density issue. It's simply a matter of allowed uses and what the standards are for those uses. So there is a use-specific standard, as I mentioned, that requires ground floor units to be 20 feet behind the facade. So the petitioners are requesting a variance to allow for all those ground floor units. So we did analyze this based on the criteria that are in the staff report. We did not find any negative impacts from the first two criteria related to use and value adjacent to the property and any adverse impacts on adjacent properties. However, one of the biggest criteria that we have to make findings for all variances is that there is some peculiar condition about the property that does not allow it to meet code. So in this case here, there's nothing that is unique about this specific property than any of the other commercial properties within the downtown. Everybody is kind of feeling the pinch from being able to find commercial tenants. So it's not something that is unique to this property. We are cognizant of this problem and making some amendments, proposed amendments to the UDO to provide some relief for all of the properties within the downtown. However, as I mentioned, we did not find that there's anything specific about this property that does not allow them to meet code. So while we are working on amendments to the UDO to allow for flexibility, as I mentioned, this problem is not unique to just this property. So a variance is not the appropriate avenue to relieve this problem. So we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and deny the petition per staff's report. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Now to the petitioner's representative.
So Craig McCormick and William Beggs are both here representing the petitioner.
Okay, I'm happy to swear both of you in if you're both planning on speaking. Craig, we'll start with you. Okay,
Thank you.
please state your name.
Craig McCormick.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And Mr. Beggs? Please state your name.
Bill Beggs.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You have up to 20 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you, Eric. We appreciate the help that you have given us through this process and through the process of the initial planning process with the building. I think what Eric stated is fairly accurate. Our client has done an analysis kind of based on the current situation, which we understand is not unique to us. It is a situation that everyone with retail space is in right now with the coronavirus situation. We do think that we have probably the best way for me to speak to this is just, we have written a proposed finding for number 3 that I think probably is the most clear way for me to state our opinion on the finding itself. And I'll go ahead and just read through that, and then we can perhaps talk about it briefly. So number 3 of the proposed findings, the strict application of the terms of the Unified Development Ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, that the practical difficulties are peculiar to the property in question, and that the development standards variance will relieve the practical difficulties. Our version of the reads as such. The site is constructed according to the approved building plans, and this location previously supported commercial uses. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the viability of ground floor commercial use for this location. Other sites surrounding this property have vacant ground floor space or newly vacated ground floor space due to the pandemic. Based on the professional analysis of the property owner's real estate consultants, the strict application of the terms of the development ordinance will result in the ground floor space and location remaining vacant for 5 or more years, thus resulting in approximately 12% of the improvements being unusable. Since this property was newly opened 6 months into the coronavirus pandemic of 2020, practical difficulties are peculiar to this specific property. The development standards variance will relieve these practical difficulties by allowing the space to be leased as residential units. The planning department is working on a text amendment that may allow flexibility of first floor space because of the strain on commercial spaces that the pandemic presents. This property is a prime example of the need for such an amendment and how the strict application of the Unified Development Ordinance results in practical difficulties imposed on the property currently, and therefore the requested variance should be granted. So that is our formal response, I think, to the 3rd proposed finding. Generally speaking, I think that we have invested a lot in this project, in this property. And certainly in the 3 or 4 years that we've been working on the design and the planning of this project, our hope was to put commercial tenants into the ground floor space. My client, Virgin Held, and the entity that is the ownership entity of the property believes that that's just not going to be a viable possibility in the foreseeable future. It's our opinion that if we could work with planning on determining what that may look like as far as what type of blinds, if they're more commercial type of things, and not have a typical sort of residential blind, which is maybe a little bit unsightly sometimes in the way that it looks. If we could find some kind of compromise, I don't think Mr. Grulich showed the plan, but we do have all of the units designed in such a way that the kind of kitchen living space is on the Walnut Street facade. So there wouldn't be any visibility into any kind of bedroom or bathroom at all. Our hope is just to occupy that space in some way. I think that the long-term plan for that space is certainly to put a commercial tenant into the spaces. I can tell you, just knowing Virgin Held and they having been a client of mine for some time, that they absolutely believe in ground floor commercial space, and that creates vitality and viability in all of their projects. We looked at some numbers and some analysis of even if this is just a 5-year situation, it still is more viable for us. And we think it probably also
Hey, RC, we
to
can
have
move.
additional housing. I'm sorry. We believe it probably benefits not only the fact that we wouldn't have a vacant storefront for a number. At some point, it would be pretty easy when the market is viable to eliminate that housing and turn over that commercial space back into the kind of retail space that it was originally intended to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are to the board for questions. Am I seeing Cassandra's there? There you are. Questions of the petitioner or staff about this petition? I'll be happy to start. I wanted just to ask Eric, the way that the 50% of the ground floor, so this was designed obviously under the previous UDO, and the 50% of the ground floor space is to be non-residential. Is that how it's defined?
That's what the requirement was at the time that this was approved, yes.
Okay, and parking does not count toward that, correct?
Correct. Code specifically says that.
Okay, okay. What is the expected time frame for the review and development of further amendments to address this situation?
That'll be ongoing for the rest of this year and into next year. We would hope by early summer next year that, you know, everything will kind of be resolved. Okay.
Just another follow-up question. I'm just curious if you have gotten other inquiries since the COVID pandemic has started from property owners who've expressed similar.
My client, Jared Brown, is also.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you can't quite speak at this time. It's really just an opportunity for us to ask questions.
Oh, I thought you were asking me. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking Eric.
Yes, we have received inquiries from a few other places that have experienced some problems. One of those was in a PUD. There was another that was a downtown location. So it has come up in other locations.
Okay. Mr. McCormick, did you want to speak to the question as well?
No, I'm sorry. I thought that was a question for us on the development side. I just wanted to mention that our client Jared is also in the meeting if there are development questions for us. The owner is with us.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the petitioner or staff from the board? Cassandra?
Yeah, to the petitioner. So am I understanding that your peculiar condition then that you're mentioning is that you're recently opened just 6 months ago?
We opened in August. We opened for the beginning of the school year, and opening during the, I would say, probably the height of the pandemic. We understand that's not a material particular or peculiar condition, but it does put us in a position of not being able to lease that space absolutely at that time. It's peculiar for us because had this project happened 2 years prior, we would likely already have some kind of tenant in there, and then we would just be working with that tenant to figure out how to get through the pandemic.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Eric, I have a question. So this project was approved in 2017. And so it was approved with the old UDO. So it has to follow the old UDO. It cannot be grandfathered into the new UDO. And is there any difference or are the standards the same?
So the UDO actually lays out a specific 3-year time frame from when it receives approval that it can still be reviewed under the old UDO. So this is past that 3-year time frame, so it would be reviewed under the current UDO.
Okay. So we are looking at this project under the current UDO that was just approved not long ago.
Correct, yes.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
This is Bill Beggs on behalf of the petitioner. If I could just add to that, you've heard mention already of contemplated or intended revisions to the text of the UDO coming up that would fit this situation right on the nose. It would fit it right.
So I'm sorry. So this is so the petitioner will have additional time at the end. Right now, this is just for questions from the BZA.
Specific
I'm
question.
sorry. I thought I was addressing that question. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, then Barry, we just need to ask the petitioner if they would like to add something.
As a petitioner, would you like to add something to that specific question that was just
Well,
asked?
yeah, I just wanted to speak to the ordinance and the fact that, and you've heard reference the intention to amend the UDO to address these concerns, and you've seen reference to analysis that we've made, and you all drive around this town every day and you see this, and so this is an opportunity, it seems to us, to make a real improvement to a property that has this peculiar situation going on right now, and that so I just want to speak to that.
Okay, thank you. Eric, could you please just lay out the way that the threshold for meeting this condition is pretty specific in the way that peculiar condition is defined, and it has to do with the physical existence of how this property is. Could you just talk to that a little bit, because that's what this case hinges on.
Absolutely, you're correct. That is one of the essential components. And so, when zoning codes are written and a broad series of standards are adopted for the city as a whole, there will be certain specific situations where a property is unique and doesn't allow for it to meet code. There's something different about that one property than the other 5,000 or 50,000 or whatever that doesn't allow it to meet code. So those are the situations where variance is appropriate for those unique times or situations and property specific locations that does not allow that specific property to meet the code. If there are multiple properties, and specifically, in one zoning district that has a specific standard that are affected by that, that is not a property specific problem, it's a code specific problem. And so the code should be fixed because it's not just this one property, and it's different types of standards are different on what makes something unique. It's not a environmental factor here. It's not a topographic factor here. This is a use specific standard. So, in that case, the argument is even harder of, why this property isn't allowed to meet a use specific, because it's a very clear standard of, we just don't want this within all of the properties within a zoning district. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Further questions from the petitioners? I'm sorry, from the commissioners?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure, Sandy.
Eric, can you speak to what that text amendment is shaping up to look like? What's supposed to be in that?
To be honest, I'm still working on it, so it'll be done, probably this week. The gist of it is to allow for situations in the downtown, if people want to convert existing space into units, that they can do so with certain restrictions. We're looking at possibilities of affordable housing component, workforce housing component. So we're still working on those specific standards. So I can't give you anything definitively right now because we're literally still working on it, but it'll be hopefully something resolved in the next week or two.
As you're
This brought out to the public.
And I just want to jump in here. This is Mike Rooker, city attorney and staff attorney for planning in the BZA. I would caution the board members strongly against anticipating what that text amendment might look like. The process for a text amendment to the UDO is extensive. It involves 2 trips to the Plan Commission, 1 to the City Council. So I would just caution you in terms of trying to anticipate what that might look like.
Thank you.
And that's what I wanted to bring up as well. We went through an extensive time of considering the UDO with several hearings I participated in the hearings, of course, since I am in the Plan Commission. And hours and hours of work to get the UDO approved as it is at this point. So I do not consider any amendments to it or variances to it lightly, since I understand that our situation is unique with COVID-19, but that situation is also temporary. We are not going to be in a pandemic for more than a year or two. And I understand that economic situations will have to catch up. Just wanted to point out that the UDO it's not something that we should consider lightly, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further questions at this time from the commissioners, of staff or petitioner? If not, we are going to turn to the public. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? The petitioner will have an opportunity to address things after public comment. Please raise your hand in the participants section. Again, if there's anyone here who would like to speak to this petition, this is the opportunity. I do not see anybody. Jackie?
Jackie left, but yes, I do not see anyone.
Jackie left. Okay, Ryan, so you're managing this? Okay.
Yes.
So then we are back to the petitioner's representatives for any final comments.
Thank you. I do have one question. Is there any precedent for a variance that could be given with a finite time applied to it? For instance, this variance may be allowed for a period of 5 years or something like that?
So variances are not precedent setting. So those are evaluated on a case by case basis. If there's a hardship now, then that hardship is undeniable. So no, there's not a time basis for a hardship. A hardship is permanent.
Okay.
Eric, oh, excuse me, this is your opportunity to speak. So I will let you finish any further comments you might have.
I just have one other comment. I think that our team in our analysis of what we can and cannot do based on the letter of the writing of the UDO, it appears to us that we can build residential units 20 feet back from the front facade. So I was directed by my client. We came up with an alternate scheme, which is that there are residential units 20 feet back from the primary facade of the building. However, what that does, of course, is it contains them back within the storefront. So we would have a space in front of those residential units between the front of the residential units and the front of the storefront. We've drawn that. It's very much, I think, not an ideal situation. It creates an odd space in between, but that I just wanted to mention that that's one thing that our team is considering doing if we have to meet the letter of the ordinance, to try to occupy the space in the short term. I mentioned that just as a point of information, as this gets considered. My hope is certainly that I think the better quality design situation is to just fill the first floor with the units. That during Eric's slideshow, he did not show a plan where we show the actual units themselves. I think that would be beneficial for the board to review that image. And that's the last that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are back to the board for discussion and action.
Sorry, it looks like the petitioner, actually, one of the other members of the petitioner's team has a comment. I've just I've just unmuted him.
Okay, Jared, could you please state your name?
Yeah, my name's Jared Brown. I'm a partner with Virgin Health.
Oh, thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. I'm not sure how much time is remaining. Ryan, do you have a sense?
Sure,
About
I maybe
14
need 10 seconds.
It's about 3.5 minutes left for the petitioner.
Thank you.
I think if we have the opportunity to illustrate the two layouts of the building of the first floor that show the units all the way to the facade versus the design, as Craig mentioned, that illustrates that 20-foot buffer, I do think that would be beneficial for everyone to see that. So I'm not sure if Craig directly requested that, but to the extent that's an opportunity, I think it could help everyone in their decision. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just respond that our job on the BZA is pretty specific in that we're just interpreting the code as it stands. And so it's not really a subjective review. And we don't make law. We are an interpretive body. And so we judge whether the case before us either it rises to the level of a variance or not. And so that really is our only function here. And it does, to me, sound like we have an extraordinary circumstance that we're all living through that has created unprecedented conditions for the market. And if the city feels that it is appropriate to review our existing code in order to respond to those conditions and relieve some hardship, then that sounds as though it's a process that is happening. And so I just want to clarify our role as BZA commissioners is very specific. If you all are allowed a specific, if you are able to pursue another option that is legally open to you, that really has no bearing to this case, to the variance that's in front of us. At this point, we can't really weigh those kind of design options. Does anybody else, Cassandra, Flavia, want to comment? It's a very
Yeah, I'm in agreement, of course, with what you're saying. And I appreciate the different designs and you trying to think of how you can use the space, but we don't deal with the planning part or specific layouts. We deal with, are you following the UDO? Are you following those specific rules that we have to follow? And if you are not, so we're looking at case by case based on the standards.
Understood. Thank you.
I would just agree with what they said. It's, we obviously want you to be successful, but it just, in this case, doesn't meet the criteria necessary for a variance.
So I am willing to entertain a motion.
I move that the case V-20-20 move that we deny this case based on the report from staff and what we've heard tonight.
Do I hear a second? Any further discussion? Okay, a vote, please. So a vote yes is for denial, just to clarify.
Burrell,
Yes.
Husky,
Yes.
Clapper.
Yes. I am sorry that the petition is not successful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, lastly, we are hearing case V-21-20, Tim Hansen for Hillside Manor Holdings LLC. Staff report, please.
Eric, you are muted.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
I am so sorry. All right, let's go back. Let's go back just a minute here. I apologize.
Please start from the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. It's probably a good place. So this is a request for Hillside Manors at the southwest corner of Hillside and Huntington Drive. The property is owned residential multifamily. It recently contained a single family residence, or actually two residences, as well as some outbuildings. Those were all demolished and removed. The property is currently vacant. There is a creek that runs through the southeast side of the property, and some tree coverage on the south side. The petitioners would like to redevelop the property with a multifamily apartment complex, and they're requesting a variance from front yard parking setback standards and a sidewalk variance along Huntington Drive. So while you're looking at this aerial photograph, Hillside Drive is on the north side. Huntington Drive runs along the east side of this property. Along the south side is Thornton Drive. Thornton Drive was platted when these lots were initially platted 80 years ago, something like that. However, Thornton Drive was not constructed. It is constructed slightly off the screen here, just to the west, to access some single family residences. But due to topography and just lack of need, it was never extended and connected along the south side of this property. Nevertheless, it is platted as public right-of-way and has to be treated as a front for setback purposes. So the need for the variance from the front parking setback standards is related to the site plan and the location of Thornton Drive. Also, the fact that this property has three street frontages, which certainly makes it very unique and difficult to construct a site plan that meets all of that, especially given the size and shape of the property that is involved. So the front yard setback variance is to allow for the parking that is located technically to the south of the building, that is between the building and Thornton Drive. So the parking setback meets all of the requirements from the setbacks from Hillside, as well as from Huntington. It's set back more than 20 feet back from the Huntington Drive frontage, but it's simply because Thornton Drive is along the south side that it's requiring this variance. So the other variance is related to a section of the property that has a culvert that runs across there. As you recall from the aerial, I mentioned the creek that runs underneath Huntington Drive. There's a culvert that runs underneath there, as well as a head wall. And there's just simply not enough room, given the topography there and the existing right-of-way and the stormwater improvements that are there, to work with the sidewalk along just that far southeast tip of the site. So they would be installing the sidewalk along Hillside Drive and Huntington Drive as required, but it would stop about 20 feet or so short of the south property line where that culvert runs underneath Huntington Drive. So the sidewalk variance is only related to that 20 feet or so along the southeast property line. So the building does meet all of the other plan requirements. This did go to the Planning Commission for site plan approval about 2 weeks ago, and received approval from that contingent upon these two variance requests. The architecture meets all of our architectural requirements. As I mentioned, new sidewalk and tree plot would be installed along the Hillside Drive and Huntington Drive frontage. So with that, we are recommending approval of the variance request with the three conditions that are listed on the screen, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Oh, let me unmute myself.
Tim, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You're muted. You're muted, Barry, you're muted.
Muted. Okay. Thank you. Please state your name.
Tim Hansen.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes to present your petition.
No, Eric laid it out pretty simply. These lots originally along Hillside were created. They went from Hillside Drive all the way back to what was actually Thornton Railroad. The railroad existed along there. I think it was dismantled, or part of it was prior to 1949, because you can see the old railroad right-of-way that doesn't have any tracks in it. And it was this site and the site south that we don't own was Midland Cutstone, and they had a large stone cutting operation. And so those lots went all the way to that railroad right-of-way. So part of the variance for the parking setback, because our building doesn't shadow, if you will, the parking lot, exists because those lots still go back. Some of the lots are to the west of that, have actually been subdivided in the past. And we could subdivide this and create a allowable lot and not have the situation, the fact that we own it. And I don't know if one of the exhibits that Eric had, the swale that runs through the drainage area has riparian buffer on both sides of it. That's 75 feet each side. So the south half of that property isn't buildable. So there's no way to actually put a building on that either. So, and I think in the staff report and in my petitioner statement, should that drive ever get extended, there'll be a permanent 160-foot buffer between that right-of-way and our parking area that currently, you can see from the aerial, is wooded and will remain that way. On the sidewalk variance, or determinate sidewalk variance, what he stated, and if you've been by the site, the property drops off next to the curb. And what we're proposing as part of our site plan is to have the sidewalk that sits 5 feet away, providing that the tree lawn space from the curb, and have the sidewalk higher than the curb, which puts fill in that area. So as we get to where the swale is and the head wall, we don't own the property on the other side. The creek actually starts on property we don't own. So we can build that sidewalk up into a point to where we'd have to fill in the creek and or extend the pipe on the property we don't own. So we built it as far as we can physically build it, or propose to build it. So ask for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. To commissioners for questions of the staff or petitioner. No questions? Okay. Then we are to the public. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to speak to this petition?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, so we're back to the petitioner for any final comments. Okay, then we're back to the board for action.
As I studied the site, it's a pretty unique site with the creek going through in a diagonal in the lower half of the site. It creates all kinds of issues, of course, environmental, and you can't touch a bunch of the stuff. So I understand why you're doing what you're doing. So it's a difficult site to develop. I often wonder why that site was never developed, because it's in such good area. And I see that now. So I am inclined to go with the variance on this, in this case, as you are preserving the creek, preserving a lot of the green space back there that obviously can't be built on, but finding a creative solution to put the building on the site.
Can I still ask a question of staff?
Sure.
I've not dealt with a determinate variance in the past, and the normal definition of that word doesn't seem to apply. Can you tell me what that is exactly?
So a determinate variance just simply means that it is not being required now, the installation of the sidewalk that is, but it could be required at a later time. So it's not a permanent variance. As I said, there could just be required at a later time when situation changes. Maybe there's a sidewalk installed along a longer portion of Huntington. Maybe the culvert's extended. A variety of things that could cause a variance to be called in.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that based on the written report and the findings that we approve. Sorry, I gotta find the number again. Too many pieces of paper. Here we go. E-21-20 as recommended with the variances with the conditions expressed 1 through 3.
I second.
Can I please have a vote?
Burrell,
Yes.
Husky,
Yes.
Clapper.
Yes. Petition is passed. Good luck and thank you. And that adjourns us for this evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you
Thank
all. Okay. Take care.